Dan came to us first in January of 2014 after stepping down from a secure treatment facility. And he stayed here with us for almost a year, returned back to the community, had some bumps, and then came back to us again in November of 2014.
So these are kids that have gone through the DYS cycle, and for whatever reason, they come back to us. So a lot of these kids are looking at aging out of DYS. Our goal is to try to get them to start being in the mindset they are going to be adults, they're almost adults, and they have to start taking a look at their future more seriously.
Me, when I was younger, I never went to high school when I was younger. I got kicked out of middle school. I went to alternative school for a little bit, and then I stopped going there. So coming into DYS at first, it was just like, I was really hot-headed. I acted off impulse a lot, so I didn't think about what I did, you know what I mean? I would just act. Whatever I wanted to do in my head, I was gonna do it.
Dan was young, a little rambunctious at the time, didn't have any goals set, didn't have a focus.
Cynthia and I almost became sort of like surrogate parents for Dan in some sense, I guess. And I think as the male figure, Dan sort of looked to me for, how do I do the right things, and to have very honest conversations about everything in life, from family to, girls and to all sorts of things. And so, it wasn't really just focused on his education or his treatment in the normal traditional DYS sense. It was, how do we help you grow up as an adult? How do we help you be a man, kind of thing.
So I think getting him to reinvest on his own and realize, I think, some of the struggles he was having, and know that there were people there who kind of were going to help him work through it. Like he had the tutoring with Nathan and that sort of stuff, and so really encouraging him to use that and utilize it well to figure out what he needed so that he could kind of finish successfully.
We've always been working with the kids towards their future goals. I think with the rubric and the work that's been done with the Future Ready Continuum, it's more solidified and it's more a step-by-step basis. It provides more of a guideline for teachers to have the language and have the tools available to help our residents think beyond just tomorrow or next week. I believe it helps the student progress because it provides a rubric that they'll be able to track changes in their plans from assessment through revocation. They'll be able to have a more solid idea of where they're going and build on those goals that they set in assessment. Looking at the assessment packets through Aspen, which is extremely helpful. I can print it out, I can give it to the resident and say, okay, this is where you were in assessment, here are your short-term goals and long-term goals. Now let's take it one step further. So it gives the student a jumping point off to think beyond what they did in assessment, and it makes it more real to them.
Dan got to the point where he decided he owned his goals, and they weren't somebody else's, they were his own. And I think that's what made the biggest difference. It became a focus, and he was very persistent in continuing to focus on that and work towards it.
Being in the program with him, and this is the same for Chris and other people who work with him, you're kind of there with him day in, day out, and every day, no matter what is happening, you're kind of there to help build him back up a little bit. And the grit piece of it, he's a kid who has that drive, and I think that's a nature of his life experience as a whole, and I think we were all aware of that, and it's really kind of helping to encourage him and support him as much as he needs so that he can kind of get back down and pull that out when he's struggling and say, no, I can do this. I know that if I push myself, I can keep going, and if I fall down, I have a team of people who will help pick me back up, because it really is a huge amount of people that supported him throughout this, and I do think that made, hopefully a positive difference for him.
For teaching, everyone thinks, okay, you just gotta focus on school. Like, yeah, you're a teacher, so your goal is to help me get my educational goals met, but at the end of the day, put that aside for a second and get to know the kids you're working with, you know what I mean?
We tried to use real life examples of some of the times in our own lives that we had not been successful at things that we tried, and kind of explain to him that, look, everybody's gonna struggle, and the real sort of, we're gonna decide on your character, you can decide on your own character by how you bounce back from that and what you wanna do next. I talked to him about all of the people that believed in him, all the people that wanted him to be successful, because I think a lot of times, Dan and a lot of our kids in DYS feel like everybody that they interact with, all the adults they interact with sort of see them as DYS kids who are not going to necessarily be successful. And for Dan, I was able to point out, look, I think you'll do well. Cynthia thinks you'll do well. Your caseworker, Sandy, thinks you're going to do well. And as long as you believe that, then we'll do it again. We'll go back to what we were doing 3 weeks ago, and we'll get you back there, and you'll finish.
And then when I went to Douglas, like I said, I started doing everything, and then I started just thinking about something I want to do as a career-wise, or towards a career goal, you know what I'm saying? And that's when I had went into the EMT Institute. And the first time I took the course, I had flunked out because the test, it wasn't passing my major test. It was hard. But even that, and then I said I wasn't gonna do that again either. And then the same situation, Chris, Jerry, Cynthia, all them staff that I was cool with over there, pushed me to go through it again. Pushed me, and I went through it again, and I passed it.
In that moment, he was despondent, he was disappointed in himself. I think he felt like he had let us down, which he certainly hadn't, because he tried. He made every effort that he could. But I think like a lot of our kids, they sometimes think, I tried this once and I failed at it, so that's it, I'm sort of worthless. And we tried hard, through our relationships with him, to let him know that we didn't feel that way and that he shouldn't feel that way. In that conversation in my office that day where he had his head in his hands and was really disappointed, I think that was, like you said, a make or break moment where we could have said, well, maybe you should try something else because you didn't do well once. But instead we said, what you should do is do whatever you're passionate about. If you feel like this is something you want to try again, we're going to find a way to get paid for. We're going to find a way to get you back there and help you get through it. And so the second time around, we provided him more supports. We had a staff member here who was an EMT who worked with him, every night. The collaborative found some folks to work with him in a tutoring capacity. And so we found the resources necessary to avoid that kind of disappointment again. And that was important to him, and it was important to us.
My first attempt was to build a relationship with Dan. So we started talking about, some things like sports, something small. And then we worked our way up to, why do you want to be an EMT? So, I shared him my experiences. And, I could see that he was very curious about it. He had the passion for it. I was honest with him, and you could see that I was there to help him. So then we set out, started looking for some resources specific to the test and some test-taking strategies, so I could try to identify what areas specifically he needed help in.
Once you build that relationship with a teacher and you get to know them like on a personal level, they get to know a little bit about you, I feel like it makes it easier for them to try to help you accomplish educational goals.
You like the approach of, my goal is here to help you, as opposed to, my goal is not here to tell you you're not going to make it. My goal is here to help you pass the test. I think looking at that from a future-ready standpoint, my goal is to improve your test score. So let's find out what areas of the test you're struggling with so we can focus on those areas. I knew that he was going to need to put the time in and that we were going to have to make our sessions very efficient.
The supports around him were reliable for Dan, and I think he has learned over the years that he can count on us to continue to give him good advice and good direction. Everything
has to be very individualized, and here what we really try to do is to say that everyone is an individual, and we're going to evaluate you each individually. We're going to expect different things out of each of you, and I think especially for those older kids who are engaged in the Track 2 programming and the future ready, real community-based integrated programming, we have to look at them a bit differently than we do our younger kids who are here in a traditional sort of treatment capacity.
I think in terms of a sense of accomplishment, I think I have a sense of Dan's accomplishment, not my own. Because again, Dan's the one that did the work, and I think that at the end of the day, I'm just a person that's part of a multifunctional team that was there to support him on the way. And if I wasn't in my role, it would be somebody else in that role who I would hope would be doing pretty similar things that I was doing to be supportive. So I think as long as you have the relationship, that role is interchangeable. I think, again, I have a sense of Dan's accomplishment. I think I remember saying to him when he graduated, I hope you're proud of yourself because you're the one that did this work, which was, I think, pretty important for him.